She was hired to kill him, but his daughter called her Mama, and everything changed forever. Asha Knight's finger froze on the trigger as 8-year-old Luna Thorne stumbled into the crosshairs, tears streaming down her face as she called for her daddy. The world's deadliest assassin had never missed a target in 12 years, but watching this broken child search for the man she was hired to kill changed everything. Vincent Moreau's voice crackled through her earpiece. Take the shot, Knight. Now. Could she pull the trigger and destroy an innocent child's world forever? The rain hammered against the mansion's bulletproof windows like desperate fingers trying to get inside. Luna's voice echoed through marble hallways, each sob of, "Daddy, where are you?" slicing through Asha's trained composure like a blade finding its mark. Through her rifle scope, she watched the little girl stumble through shadows, small hands trailing along walls for guidance, her Disney princess nightgown a splash of pink innocence in the darkness. Asha had infiltrated the Thorne household 3 weeks ago, replacing the previous bodyguard whose accidental death had cleared her path to the target. Vincent's intelligence was flawless, as always. Alexander Thorne would be in his study at exactly 11:47 p.m., reviewing security footage while his daughter slept peacefully. Except Luna wasn't sleeping. The child had been plagued by nightmares since her mother's suspicious car accident 2 years ago. "Knight, what's your status?" Vincent's voice cut through her earpiece like ice-scraping glass. "Target should be visible." Asha's finger trembled against the trigger, a sensation so foreign it might as well have been someone else's hand. In 12 years of killing, she had never hesitated, never questioned, never felt anything but the cold satisfaction of a contract completed. But watching this broken child search desperately for the only parent she had left was unraveling something deep in Asha's chest, something she thought Vincent had successfully carved out of her years ago. The study door opened with a soft click, and Alexander Thorne emerged like salvation itself. Tall and lean with exhaustion carved into every line of his face, his prematurely gray temples caught the hallway light as he dropped to his knees without hesitation, arms opening wide to catch his world. "Luna, sweetheart, I'm here." "Daddy's here." The child flew into his embrace with the desperate relief of someone who had been drowning and suddenly found air. Alex's hands smoothed her dark curls with infinite gentleness, his voice breaking slightly as he whispered comfort. "Another nightmare, baby girl." Luna nodded against his shoulder, her small body shaking. "I dreamed you disappeared like Mommy did. I looked everywhere, but you were gone." Asha watched through her scope as Alex's jaw tightened with pain he was trying to hide from his daughter. His blue eyes closed briefly and his hands shook almost imperceptibly as he held Luna closer. This was supposed to be simple. One clean shot, target eliminated, contract completed, payment received, but nothing about this felt simple anymore. "Target acquired," Vincent's voice demanded, patience wearing thin. "Take the shot, Knight." "Negative," Asha whispered, her voice barely audible over her thundering pulse. "Child in the way, target not clear." She watched Alex carry Luna toward the stairs, his protective posture radiating the kind of fierce parental love she had never experienced, but somehow recognized as the most powerful force on earth. The way he curved his entire body around his daughter, shielding her from even imaginary threats, sent an unexpected ache through Asha's chest. As they disappeared from view, Asha lowered her rifle and pressed her back against the rooftop ventilation unit. Rain soaked through her tactical gear, but she barely noticed the cold. Her hands were shaking. In all her years as Vincent's most reliable operative, she had never experienced this kind of internal conflict. Children were supposed to be off limits in her contracts, but watching Alex Thorne love his daughter with such desperate intensity had awakened something she had buried so deep she forgot it existed. 3 days later, Asha sat across from Alex Thorne in his executive conference room, her fabricated credentials spread across the mahogany table like a perfectly constructed lie. She had spent 72 hours preparing for this interview, crafting the ideal persona of a highly qualified security specialist seeking permanent placement as Luna's personal bodyguard. Alex studied her resume with the intensity of a man who had learned to trust no one completely. His blue eyes missed nothing as they swept over her qualifications, and Asha found herself noticing details her professional training had not prepared her for. The way his jaw clenched when he reviewed sections about child protection protocols, how his fingers drummed against the table when discussing his daughter's safety requirements, the bone-deep exhaustion that shadowed his features despite his attempt to project unshakable strength. "Your references are impeccable," Alex said finally, his voice carrying the weight of a man who had been forced to question everything and everyone in his life. "But I need to understand why you want this specific position. Luna is not just any client. She is everything to me." The rawness in his admission caught Asha completely off guard. She had expected corporate formality, professional distance, not this vulnerable honesty that seemed to strip away her carefully constructed defenses. "I understand the stakes, Mr. Thorne," Asha replied, surprised by her own sincerity. "Protecting children requires a different kind of commitment than standard security work." "Different how, specifically?" Asha met his penetrating gaze, walking a dangerous line between truth and deception. "When you are protecting an adult, you are safeguarding their choices, their independence, their right to take calculated risks. With a child, you are protecting their entire future, their ability to grow up feeling safe enough in the world to become who they are meant to be. That kind of responsibility changes everything about how you approach the job." Something shifted in Alex's expression, a flicker of recognition that made Asha's pulse quicken unexpectedly. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes searching her face with newfound interest that felt almost like he was seeing through her professional mask to something deeper. "You speak from personal experience," he observed. It was not a question, and Asha found herself navigating treacherous territory between maintaining her cover and acknowledging a truth that felt too close to her heart. "I know what it feels like to grow up without that safety net, without adults who prioritize your well-being above everything else. I will not allow that to happen to Luna." The silence stretched between them, charged with an intensity Asha had not anticipated. Alex's protective instincts were radiating from him like heat, and she found herself unexpectedly drawn to his fierce dedication to his daughter, even knowing she was supposed to destroy him. "The previous bodyguard's death was not accidental," Alex said suddenly, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Someone wants me dead, and they are willing to hurt innocent people to achieve that goal. Are you prepared for that reality?" Asha's training kicked in automatically, her expression remaining perfectly neutral, even as guilt twisted in her stomach like a living thing. "I am prepared for any threat that comes Luna's way. That's exactly what you would be hiring me for." Alex stood abruptly and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, his hands clasped behind his back in a gesture that spoke of military training, or simply the burden of carrying impossible weight. "Luna has not had a full night's sleep in 2 years. Since her mother died, she has been terrified that something will happen to me too. I need someone who understands that protecting my daughter means more than just physical safety. She needs to feel secure enough to be a child again." The vulnerability in his admission made Asha's chest tighten with an emotion she could not name. She watched the tension in his shoulders, the way he held himself like a man bearing the weight of the world while trying not to let it show. This was not the cold corporate target Vincent had described in his briefings. This was a broken father desperately trying to hold his shattered family together with nothing but love and determination. "I can give her that security," Asha said, meaning it more than she had meant anything in years. Alex turned back to face her, his blue eyes intense and searching in a way that made her feel exposed. "There is something dangerous about you, Miss Knight. I can sense it. But there is also something that tells me you would die before letting anyone hurt my daughter." The accuracy of his assessment sent a chill down Asha's spine that had nothing to do with the office's air conditioning. "Your instincts are correct on both counts." A small smile ghosted across Alex's lips, the first genuine expression she had seen from him during the entire interview. It transformed his entire face, giving her a glimpse of the man he might be when he was not constantly vigilant against threats to his family. "Then welcome to our family, Miss Knight. Luna's safety is now in your hands." As they shook hands to seal the agreement, Asha felt the warmth of his palm against hers and realized with crystalline clarity that she was in serious trouble. Vincent expected regular updates, measurable progress toward completing the contract. But all she could think about was the trust Alex was placing in her and the way his smile had made something flutter in her chest that had been dormant for years. That evening, Asha arrived at the Thorne mansion as Luna was being prepared for bed by Maria Gonzalez, the longtime nanny who had helped raise the child since birth. From the doorway, Asha observed the bedtime routine with professional attention to security details, while simultaneously feeling drawn into the domestic warmth like a moth to flame. "Miss Knight," Luna's voice carried across the spacious bedroom as she spotted Asha. "Daddy told me you're going to keep me safe now." Asha approached the bed slowly, unaccustomed to the open trust shining in a child's eyes. Luna was breathtakingly beautiful, with her father's piercing blue eyes and dark curls that framed her face like a halo. There was an innocence about her that made Asha's trained killer instincts recoil in horror at what she had almost done 3 nights ago. "That is absolutely right," Asha said softly, settling carefully on the edge of the bed. "I'm going to make sure nothing bad ever happens to you." "Are you going to sing to me like Mommy used to?" Luna asked hopefully, her small hands clutching a worn stuffed elephant. "Maria tries her best, but she does not know the songs Mommy sang." Asha glanced at Maria, who smiled encouragingly from her position by the closet. The older woman's eyes held a mixture of grief and hope that suggested she wanted nothing more than to see Luna find comfort again. "What songs did your mommy sing?" Asha asked gently. "Lullabies in different languages. She said music was the same in every language because it came from the heart, not from words." Without thinking, Asha found herself humming a melody from her own fractured childhood, one of the few pleasant memories she retained from before Vincent found her and molded her into his perfect weapon. The words came in Russian first, then French, then Arabic, languages from the places she had lived during those years when she still believed someone might love her. Luna's eyes grew heavy as Asha's voice wrapped around her like a protective blanket, the child's breathing deepening into the rhythm of approaching sleep. "That is so beautiful," Luna whispered drowsily. "What do the words mean?" "They mean you are safe, little star," Asha replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Nothing can hurt you here." As Luna's breathing settled into the deep, even pattern of peaceful sleep, Asha became aware of a presence in the doorway. Alex stood watching them, his expression unreadable but intensely focused. She finished the lullaby softly and carefully stood, following him into the hallway. "Where did you learn those songs?" Alex asked quietly, pulling Luna's door partially closed with infinite care. "I lived in many different places as a child," Asha replied, which was technically true even if it omitted the crucial context. Music was one of the few constants in my life. They stood close in the dimly lit hallway, both instinctively watching Luna sleep peacefully, for what Alex later told her was the first time in months. The domestic intimacy of the moment was overwhelming, and Asha found herself hyper-aware of Alex's proximity, the way his cologne mixed with the faint scent of coffee and exhaustion that seemed to follow him everywhere. "She has not fallen asleep that easily since..." Alex's voice trailed off, but Asha understood, since her mother died. She feels safe, Asha said simply, stating what seemed obvious. Alex turned to look at her, and suddenly they were standing much closer than professional distance required. His blue eyes searched her face in the soft hallway lighting, and Asha felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to develop hairline cracks. "So do I," he admitted quietly, the words seeming to surprise him as much as they surprised her. When both of them reached simultaneously to adjust Luna's blanket through the partially open door, their hands brushed in a contact that was brief but electric. Awareness shot through Asha's entire body like lightning finding its target. She looked up to find Alex's gaze fixed on her face, his expression shifting from surprise to something deeper and infinitely more dangerous. They both froze, hands still touching, caught in a moment that felt suspended outside of time and consequence. Asha could hear her own pulse thundering in her ears, could see the way Alex's breathing had changed. For a heartbeat that lasted an eternity, she forgot she was supposed to kill him, forgot everything except the warmth of his hand against hers and the stunning realization that they were both protecting the same precious child. "Miss Knight," Alex said softly, but he made no move to pull his hand away. "Asha," she corrected, her voice barely above a whisper. The charged silence stretched between them until Luna stirred slightly in her sleep, breaking the spell with the innocent sound of a child dreaming peacefully. They stepped apart quickly, both suddenly aware of how inappropriate the moment had been. But as Alex wished her good night and disappeared toward his own room, Asha remained in the hallway for long minutes, staring at her hand where his touch still seemed to burn. She was in serious trouble, and for the first time in her professional career, she was not sure she cared. Have you ever felt that instant protective instinct kick in when you see a child in danger, even when it goes against everything you thought you believed? Tell me about a time when your heart overruled your head in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if this story is already making you question everything you thought you knew about right and wrong. Over the following days, Asha settled into her role as Luna's protector, while fighting an increasingly desperate internal war about her true mission. Every morning she accompanied Luna to the exclusive private school, studying the child's routines and identifying potential vulnerabilities, while simultaneously feeling her resolve to complete Vincent's contract weakening with each passing hour. Luna was extraordinary in ways that caught Asha completely off guard. Brilliant like her father, but with an emotional intelligence that took Asha's breath away, she asked thoughtful questions about Asha's travels, shared precious memories about her mother with the kind of trust that made Asha's chest ache, and seemed to possess an almost supernatural ability to sense when Asha was struggling with dark thoughts. "You look sad sometimes," Luna observed one afternoon as they walked through Central Park, her small hand warm in Asha's larger one. "Like you are remembering something that hurts your heart." Asha glanced down at the child, continually surprised by her perceptiveness. "Everyone has sad memories, sweetheart. It is part of being human." "Daddy says sad memories cannot hurt us if we do not let them," Luna replied with the wisdom of someone far older than her 8 years. "He says Mommy's love is stronger than any sadness, and it lives in our hearts forever." The simple wisdom broke something open in Asha's chest. She had never known a mother's love, had never experienced the kind of unconditional care that Luna took for granted. Watching Alex love his daughter with such fierce tenderness was like witnessing a foreign language she desperately wanted to learn but had no idea how to speak. That evening, Asha found herself lingering after Luna's bedtime, ostensibly to discuss security protocols with Alex, but really because she was not ready to leave the warmth of their home. She discovered him in his study, hunched over financial reports with stress carved into every line of his body. "Working late again?" she asked, settling into the chair across from his desk. Alex looked up, his blue eyes bloodshot with exhaustion and worry. Revenue projections and security assessments. We are being systematically targeted by competitors trying to steal our cybersecurity patents. The pressure is affecting our stock price and putting additional strain on everything we have built. Is that why someone wants you dead? The blunt question hung in the air between them like a blade waiting to fall. Alex leaned back in his chair, studying her face with the intensity she was beginning to recognize as purely him. Most likely, he said with bitter honesty. My death would trigger a hostile takeover clause that would give Richard Kane access to proprietary technology worth billions of dollars. Luna would inherit my shares as my only heir, but as a minor, they would be held in trust by my sister Amelia until she turns 18. Asha felt a chill of recognition creeping up her spine. Vincent had mentioned Kane Industries as their client, but she had never connected it to a larger corporate conspiracy that involved Alex's own family. You do not trust your sister? Alex's laugh was bitter enough to cut glass. Amelia has always resented that our father left me control of the company instead of her. She married into old money but never forgave me for inheriting what she felt was rightfully hers. If something happens to me, she becomes Luna's legal guardian and gains control of her inheritance until she reaches adulthood. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity, and Asha realized Vincent's contract was part of something much larger and more sinister than a simple assassination. Luna was not just losing her father. She was being delivered into the hands of people who saw her as nothing more than a means to access her inheritance. Alex, she said, his first name feeling natural on her lips for the first time. What if I told you the threat was much closer than you think? He leaned forward, his full attention focused on her with laser intensity. What exactly do you mean? Before Asha could formulate a response that would not expose her completely, her phone buzzed insistently with a text from Vincent. Progress report required. Contract completion expected within 48 hours. No further delays acceptable. The message felt like ice water flooding her veins. In 48 hours, Vincent expected Alex to be dead and Luna to be orphaned, vulnerable, and completely at the mercy of people who cared nothing for her well-being. Asha, Alex's voice carried genuine concern. You look like you have seen a ghost. She looked up at him, this man who had trusted her with his daughter's life, who had made her feel things she thought were impossible, who was looking at her now with worry for her well-being rather than suspicion. The truth was burning in her throat like acid, but telling him would mean betraying Vincent, and Vincent never forgave betrayal. He eliminated it. I think we need to significantly increase Luna's security detail, she said instead, hating herself for the continued deception. Alex nodded grimly, his protective instincts fully activated. Agreed. Whatever it takes to keep her safe. As Asha left the mansion that night, walking through rain that felt like tears from a weeping sky, she realized she had made her choice without consciously deciding. She could not kill Alex Thorne. More than that, she was going to protect him and Luna from whatever Vincent had planned, even if it meant destroying herself in the process. She just had to figure out how to do it without getting them all killed. The next morning brought crisis in the form of a car bomb exploding in the mansion's circular driveway, just as Alex was leaving for a crucial board meeting. Asha's training kicked in with lethal efficiency, her body moving faster than conscious thought as she tackled Alex to the marble steps and covered his body with hers as debris rained down around them like deadly confetti. For several heartbeats they lay pressed together on the cold stone, Asha's weight pinning Alex safely beneath her while her trained eyes scanned for additional threats. She could feel his heart racing against her chest, could see the shock and dawning gratitude in his blue eyes as he stared up at her. Are you hurt? She asked urgently, her hands frantically checking him for injuries while her body remained protectively positioned over his. No, thanks to you, Alex replied, his voice rough with adrenaline and something deeper. How did you know to react so quickly? Asha's mind raced as she searched for an explanation that would not expose her true nature. She could not tell him she had spotted the explosive device because Vincent had trained her to recognize such threats from a distance. The movement pattern around the car looked wrong. I have learned to trust my instincts about potential dangers. Alex's hands had somehow found their way to frame her face, his thumbs brushing across her cheekbones with startling gentleness. Your instincts just saved my life. They were lying entirely too close, and Asha became hyper-aware of every point where their bodies touched. Alex's protective anger was radiating from him in waves, but there was something else in his eyes now, something that made her pulse quicken in ways that had nothing to do with danger and everything to do with desire. We need to get you inside where it is safe, she said, though she made no immediate move to release him. In a minute, Alex replied, his gaze dropping briefly to her lips before meeting her eyes again. I need a moment to process that someone just tried to kill me in my own driveway. The vulnerability in his admission made Asha's chest tighten with protective fury. Without thinking, she reached up to smooth the worry lines from his forehead with fingertips that had been trained to kill, but now only wanted to comfort. I will not let anyone hurt you. That is a promise. Why? The question was barely a whisper, loaded with confusion and hope. Why do you care so much? Because I was sent here to kill you, Asha thought desperately, because protecting you and Luna has become more important than my own survival, because you have awakened something in me I thought Vincent had. Successfully destroyed. Because Luna needs her father, she said instead, which was true but far from the complete truth that was burning in her chest. Alex's expression softened into something that made her breath catch, and for a moment that felt suspended in time, Asha thought he might kiss her right there on the mansion steps with debris scattered around them. The possibility terrified and thrilled her in equal measure, but then sirens wailed in the distance, breaking the spell and forcing reality to crash back down on them. As they untangled themselves and Alex called Captain David Santos to report the bombing, Asha's phone buzzed with another message from Vincent. Excellent preliminary work. Target properly softened for final approach. Proceed as planned. Her blood turned to ice as she realized Vincent thought she had planted the bomb to set up Alex for the kill. He had no idea she had saved her target's life instead of ending it. The timer was running down, and Vincent's patience was wearing dangerously thin. 24 hours had become 12, and Asha still had no viable plan for protecting Alex and Luna from the most dangerous person in her life. That night, after Luna was finally settled and the mansion was crawling with additional security personnel, Asha found Alex in his study once again. But this time, he was not working. He sat in the leather chair facing the window, staring out at the city lights with a glass of whiskey in his hand, and shadows deeper than the darkness outside haunting his features. Drinking alone? She asked softly, closing the door behind her. Thinking alone, Alex replied without turning around. Someone tried to kill me today. If you had not been there, Luna would be an orphan. Asha moved carefully to sit in the chair across from his desk, her heart aching at the pain in his voice. But I was there. That is what matters now. Alex finally looked at her, his blue eyes haunted by ghosts she was only beginning to understand. Is it really? How many more times can I cheat death before my luck runs out? How many more nights will Luna wake up screaming because she is terrified of losing me too? Alex, my wife died because of me, he said suddenly, his voice breaking with guilt that had been poisoning him for 2 years. She was coming home from picking up Luna's birthday cake when the car accident happened. The brake lines had been cut. Someone meant to kill me, and they murdered her instead. The confession hung in the air between them like a physical weight, and Asha felt tears pricking her eyes as she watched this strong man crumble under guilt he had been carrying alone. She wanted to tell him about Richard Kane, about the conspiracy that went far deeper than he realized, but she could not expose Vincent's network without destroying any chance of protecting them. "That was not your fault," she said fiercely, meaning every word. "Was it not?" Alex's laugh was bitter enough to cut glass. "Every single day I wake up wondering if today will be the day my work finally destroys what remains of my family. Luna deserves so much better than a father who brings danger into her life like a plague." "Luna deserves her father," Asha said, standing and moving around the desk with determination burning in her chest. "She deserves the man who sings her lullabies and reads her bedtime stories and loves her more than his own life." Alex looked up at her, his eyes wet with unshed tears that made him look younger and more vulnerable than she had ever seen him. "How do you know what she deserves?" "Because I grew up without it," Asha admitted, her own voice barely steady as painful memories clawed at her chest. "I grew up without anyone who would have died to protect me, anyone who thought I was worth saving. Do not you dare rob Luna of what I would have given anything to have." The raw honesty of her words seemed to break something open in Alex. He stood slowly, his eyes never leaving her face, and suddenly they were standing much too close again. But this time, neither of them stepped away. This time, the air between them crackled with something that had been building since the moment their hands first touched. "Asha," he said softly, her name like a prayer on his lips. "I know," she whispered, though she was not entirely sure what she was acknowledging. When Alex's hands framed her face with infinite gentleness, his thumbs tracing the tears she had not realized were falling, Asha felt 12 years of emotional walls beginning to crumble like ancient fortifications under siege. She had trained herself not to feel, not to want, not to need anyone for anything. But standing in Alex's study with his gentle hands on her skin, she wanted things she had never allowed herself to imagine. "I should not want this," Alex said, his forehead resting against hers. "Neither should I," Asha replied, her hands fisting in his shirt. "But I do," he continued, his voice rough with need and vulnerability that stripped away every pretense between them. "I want you in ways that terrify me. Alex." His name escaped her lips like a plea. When he kissed her, it was with the desperation of a man who had almost died that day, and the tenderness of someone who understood that broken things required gentle handling. Asha melted into him, her carefully constructed defenses dissolving under the gentle pressure of his mouth moving against hers. This was not supposed to happen. She was not supposed to feel safe in his arms or want to protect his heart the way she protected his daughter. But as Alex deepened the kiss, his hands tangling in her hair, Asha realized with crystalline clarity that she was falling in love with the man she had been sent to kill. And that changed absolutely everything. Chapter 2. The kiss deepened until time seemed to lose all meaning, years of loneliness and carefully maintained emotional distance melting away as Alex's arms wrapped around her with protective tenderness. Asha had never experienced anything remotely like the combination of safety and desire that flooded through her as he held her close. His hands were gentle but sure, tracing the lines of her face like he was memorizing every detail for safekeeping. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard and staring at each other with wonder and confusion, Alex rested his forehead against hers. "I have wanted to do that since the moment I watched you sing Luna to sleep on your first night here." "Alex, this is incredibly complicated," Asha whispered, though her hands remained fisted in his shirt, completely unwilling to let him go. "I know it is," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of a man who understood impossible situations. "But I cannot pretend I do not feel this connection between us anymore. You have brought peace to my daughter for the first time in 2 years, and you have awakened something in me I thought died with my wife." The mention of his deceased wife sent guilt shooting through Asha's chest like a physical wound. She was deceiving him in the worst possible way, accepting his trust and his growing feelings while harboring the secret that could destroy everything they were building together. But looking into his blue eyes, seeing the vulnerability and hope there, she could not bring herself to pull away. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Alex's hands smoothed down her arms, his touch sending shivers through her entire body. "Now we figure out how to keep my family safe from whoever is trying to destroy us. And maybe we explore whatever this is between us, even if it scares us both." Before Asha could formulate a response, her phone buzzed insistently against her hip. Vincent's name flashed on the screen like a death sentence, and cold reality crashed back down around them with brutal efficiency. She stepped away from Alex reluctantly, immediately missing his warmth. "I should take this call," she said, hating the way her voice shook despite her training. Alex nodded, though his eyes remained fixed on her face with an intensity that made her feel transparent. "We will continue this conversation later." As Asha answered Vincent's call, she wondered desperately if there would be a later for them at all. "Night." Vincent's voice was sharp with impatience and barely controlled anger. "Final status report. Target is contained within secured location," Asha replied carefully, moving toward the window where Alex could not overhear her words. "Security has been significantly increased after today's incident. The car bomb was unnecessary theatrics that could have compromised the operation," Vincent said coldly. "I did not authorize that approach. Stick to the original plan. Clean, simple, no collateral damage that could be traced back to our organization." Asha's stomach churned with the realization that Vincent had not orchestrated the bombing. Someone else was playing games with Alex's life, which meant the conspiracy was even more complex than she had realized. Understood completely. 6 hours night, Vincent continued with deadly finality. "Contract completion by dawn, or I will send a cleanup team to finish what you apparently cannot, and we both know how messy my backup operatives tend to be when they are disappointed." The line went dead, and Asha stared at her phone with growing horror. Vincent was giving her an ultimatum. Kill Alex within 6 hours, or watch Vincent's people tear apart everything she had grown to love with the efficiency of a pack of wolves. She turned back to find Alex watching her with genuine concern etched into his features. "Everything all right?" "Work complications," she said, which was technically true even if it was the understatement of the century. Alex moved closer, his protective instincts clearly activated by something in her expression. "Anything I can help you handle? If only he knew what he was offering. It is nothing I cannot manage on my own." But as Alex smiled and reached for her hand with complete trust, Asha realized that managing this situation would require telling him the truth about who she really was. And the truth would destroy any chance they might have had together, assuming they both lived long enough for it to matter. The next morning brought a new crisis that pushed their personal complications temporarily aside. Luna woke up with a raging fever, and within hours she was delirious with what appeared to be a severe strain of influenza that had her temperature spiking dangerously high. "The doctor should be here within the hour," Alex said, pacing Luna's bedroom like a caged animal, while Asha sat beside the child's bed, cooling her fevered skin with damp cloths and monitoring her breathing. "Daddy?" Luna's voice was weak and confused, her usually bright eyes glazed with fever. "Is Asha still here? I cannot see her very well." "I am right here, sweetheart," Asha said softly, taking Luna's small hand in both of hers. "I'm not going anywhere." "Do not leave, okay?" Luna whispered, her grip surprisingly strong for someone so ill. "I dreamed you went away like Mommy did, and I was so scared I could not breathe." Asha's chest tightened painfully as maternal protectiveness she had never experienced flooded through her system. "I promise, I am not going anywhere. You are stuck with me." When the family doctor arrived and confirmed it was indeed a particularly nasty virus that would require careful monitoring but was not life-threatening, Alex sagged with visible relief. But as the day wore on and Luna remained fevered and clingy, refusing to let go of Asha's hand even during brief naps, Asha found herself experiencing something completely foreign. The bone-deep need to nurture and protect that she had always assumed was beyond her emotional capabilities. She stayed by Luna's bedside throughout the endless day, singing lullabies in different languages and reading favorite stories, watching Alex pace and worry like his world was ending. The domesticity of it all was overwhelming in its simple beauty, and Asha realized she was getting a glimpse of the family life she had never imagined could be possible for someone like her. "You're incredibly good with her," Alex said during one of Luna's brief periods of peaceful sleep. Asha looked up from where she was adjusting Luna's blankets with infinite care. "She is easy to love. So are you." The quiet admission hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning neither of them was quite ready to address fully. But as evening approached and Luna's fever finally broke, leaving her sleeping peacefully for the first time all day, Asha felt the weight of Vincent's deadline pressing down on her like a physical force. 2 hours left. "Alex," she said as they stood in the hallway outside Luna's room, her heart pounding with the knowledge that she was about to change everything between them. "There is something crucial I need to tell you." Before she could continue, Alex's phone rang with urgent intensity. He glanced at the screen and frowned deeply. "It is Captain Santos. I should take this immediately." As Alex answered the call, Asha watched his expression shift from confusion to alarm to something approaching panic, and she felt ice forming in her veins. "What do you mean, suspicious activity?" Alex was saying, his voice rising with concern. "At the office building?" "No, I'm absolutely not coming in tonight. My daughter has been seriously ill." "What kind of suspicious activity are we talking about?" Asha felt her blood turn to ice as she realized exactly what was happening. Vincent was not waiting for her to complete the contract. He was forcing her hand by threatening the places and people Alex felt responsible for protecting, escalating the pressure until Alex had no choice but to expose himself. "There has been a break-in at Thorne Industries," Alex said after ending the call, his face pale with worry. "Security cameras caught someone tampering with the executive elevator systems and the building's fire suppression equipment. Santos thinks it might be directly connected to yesterday's car bombing." Asha's mind raced through the implications with deadly clarity. Vincent was setting up the building as the kill site, probably planning to make Alex's death look like an accident during the security investigation. If Alex went to the office building tonight, he would be walking directly into a carefully constructed trap. "You absolutely cannot go," she said with desperate urgency. Alex looked at her with surprise at the vehemence in her voice. "Isha, it is my company. If someone is systematically targeting our security systems and putting my employees at risk—" "It is a trap," she interrupted, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "Alex, please, you have to trust me completely on this. Going to the office tonight will get you killed." How could you possibly know that with such certainty? The question she had been dreading, the moment of truth that would either save them or destroy them completely. Asha looked at this man who had trusted her with his daughter's life, who had kissed her with such tenderness, who had made her believe in the possibility of family and love and redemption. She had to tell him the truth, even if it destroyed everything. "Because I know exactly who is trying to kill you," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the chaos in her heart. "And I know their methods better than anyone alive." Alex's expression shifted from confusion to something harder and infinitely more dangerous. "Explain that statement immediately." Asha took a shaky breath, knowing that what she said next would change everything between them forever, possibly ending any chance they had of building something real together. My name is Asha Knight, and I'm a professional assassin. I was hired to kill you 3 weeks ago." The silence that followed was deafening, stretching between them like a chasm that might never be bridged. Alex stared at her for a long moment, his blue eyes cycling through shock, betrayal, hurt, and something that looked like devastation. "You are here to kill me," he said slowly, each word deliberate and cutting. "I was," Asha said, tears burning her eyes as she watched him process the betrayal. "But that was before I met Luna. Before I understood what kind of man you really are. Alex, I swear to you on everything I hold sacred, I cannot and will not complete that contract. Get out." The words were quiet, but filled with absolute finality. "Alex, please, let me explain." "Get out!" The roar was loud enough to wake Luna, whose frightened cry carried from her bedroom like a knife through Asha's heart. As Alex rushed to comfort his daughter, Asha stood frozen in the hallway, watching her world collapse around her in slow motion. She had lost him. She had lost them both. And in less than 2 hours, Vincent would send someone else to finish what she could not bring herself to do. But as she listened to Alex soothing Luna's fears with gentle words and protective love, Asha realized with crystal clarity that losing them did not matter if she could keep them alive. She had 90 minutes to figure out how to protect the family she loved from the most dangerous man she had ever known, even if they could never forgive her for lying to them. Asha spent the next hour in her apartment, methodically planning what would likely be her final mission. She had to assume Vincent had the mansion under surveillance by now, which meant Alex and Luna were essentially trapped there until she could neutralize the threat permanently. The office building trap was designed to draw Alex out, but when he did not appear, Vincent would inevitably escalate to more direct methods. She was checking her weapons cache when her phone rang. Alex's name on the screen made her heart race with hope and terror in equal measure. "Asha!" His voice was cold and professional, completely devoid of the warmth she had grown to treasure. "We need to talk." "Alex, I know you do not trust me anymore, but Luna has been asking for you constantly," he interrupted, his tone flat and emotionless. "She does not understand why you left so suddenly, and she is becoming increasingly distressed." The information hit Asha like a physical blow to the chest. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt her in any way." "Meet me at the safe house on 5th Street, Alex continued with mechanical precision. "The one you recommended for emergency evacuation protocols." Asha frowned, her training immediately flagging the inconsistency. She'd never recommended a safe house on 5th Street during any of their security discussions. "Alex, 1 hour, Asha. Come alone and do not bring any weapons." The line went dead, and Asha stared at her phone with growing dread. Alex would never put Luna at risk by moving her to an unsecured location, especially not after discovering Asha's true identity. Which meant either he was making a catastrophic mistake that would get them both killed, or someone else had his phone and was using his voice to lure her into a trap. Vincent had Luna and Alex. 45 minutes later, Asha approached the abandoned warehouse on 5th Street with every instinct screaming danger and her heart breaking with each step. The building was supposed to be empty, but she could see lights in the upper windows and shadows moving behind the glass like predators waiting for prey. She checked her weapons one final time and prepared to walk into what was almost certainly a trap designed specifically for her. But as she thought about Luna's trusting smile and Alex's gentle hands, she realized with absolute certainty that she did not care about the odds stacked against her. Some things were worth dying for, and this family was everything. The warehouse was eerily quiet as Asha slipped through a side entrance she had identified during previous reconnaissance, her footsteps silent on the concrete floor despite her racing pulse. She had studied the building's layout extensively during her evaluation of potential safe houses, and she used that knowledge now to navigate toward the upper level where she had seen the lights. She found them in what had once been an executive office, now stripped bare except for 3 chairs arranged in the center of the room like props in a nightmare. Alex sat in one, his hands zip-tied behind his back, a dark bruise spreading across his left cheek. Luna was curled in his lap, unnaturally still and pale, her breathing shallow but steady. "They drugged her," Alex said when he saw Asha in the doorway, his voice rough with fury and helpless fear. "She's alive but unconscious. They said it was just a sedative." Vincent stepped out of the shadows with theatrical precision, his silver hair perfectly styled despite the warehouse setting. He looked exactly as Asha, remembered from their last meeting 6 months ago. Coldly handsome, impeccably dressed, and absolutely ruthless in ways that made other killers seem like amateurs. "Hello, Knight," he said pleasantly, as if they were meeting for coffee instead of a final confrontation. "You have caused me quite a bit of trouble and disappointment." "Let them go, Vincent," Asha said, her voice steady despite the rage building in her chest. "Your contract is with me, and we both know it." "Actually, my contract was for Alexander Thorne's death," Vincent corrected with cruel precision. "Since you seem incapable of completing that simple task, I have decided to handle the situation personally." He gestured toward the third chair with mock politeness. "Please sit. We have much to discuss about your failures." Asha remained standing, every muscle coiled for action despite the hopelessness of their situation. "The girl was never part of any deal we made." "The girl," Vincent said, moving closer to Alex and Luna with predatory grace, "is insurance. You see, I have realized that you have developed an inconvenient emotional attachment to our targets. This complicates everything about our professional relationship." "Vincent, please. So here's exactly what is going to happen," Vincent continued, pulling out a sleek pistol with practiced efficiency. "You are going to complete your original contract by putting a bullet in Alexander Thorne's head. In exchange, I will allow the child to live long enough to be useful to our clients. Refuse my generous offer, and I will kill them both and find a new protege who understands the critical importance of emotional detachment." Asha felt the weight of the gun as Vincent placed it in her hands, heavier than any weapon she had ever carried because of what it represented. This was the moment of ultimate choice, the crossroads where she would either become the killer Vincent had always wanted her to be, or find the courage to become something entirely different. "Choose quickly, Knight," Vincent said with growing impatience. "My tolerance for hesitation has reached its absolute limit." Alex's blue eyes met hers across the room, and she saw something there that nearly broke her completely. Forgiveness. Even knowing what she was, even facing death at her hands, he was looking at her with understanding rather than hatred. "It is okay," Alex said quietly, his voice steady despite the terror he must be feeling. "Whatever you have to do to save Luna's life, it is okay. I forgive you." "How touching," Vincent said with disgust that cut through the air like acid. "The target is giving his assassin permission to kill him. This is exactly why emotional attachments make us weak and useless, Knight." Asha raised the gun with hands that were perfectly steady despite the chaos in her heart, her training taking over even as her soul rebelled against what she was being asked to do. She had never missed a shot in 12 years of killing. Vincent knew that. Alex knew that. But as she pointed the weapon at Alex's head, she realized there was something Vincent had never understood about her despite all his years of conditioning. She had never missed a shot because she had never cared about her targets before. She had never had to choose between duty and love, between survival and sacrifice, between being Vincent's perfect weapon and being human. But looking at Alex holding his unconscious daughter, watching him prepare to die to save Luna's life, Asha finally understood what real strength looked like. "You are absolutely right, Vincent," she said, her voice steady and calm. "Emotional attachments do make us weak." She spun and fired in one fluid motion, 12 years of training and instinct guiding her aim as the bullet caught Vincent in the chest before he could react. He staggered backward, shock replacing his cold confidence as blood bloomed across his expensive shirt. "But they also make us human," Asha continued, firing twice more as Vincent reached for his backup weapon with desperate fingers. "And sometimes being human is infinitely more important than being perfect." Vincent collapsed to the concrete floor, his eyes wide with disbelief and something that might have been respect. You chose them over everything I gave you." "I chose love over fear," Asha replied, kneeling to check his pulse and finding nothing. "Something you never taught me was even possible." As Vincent's breathing stopped forever, Asha felt 12 years of conditioning and control finally break away like chains dissolving. She was free for the first time in her adult life. But freedom meant nothing if Alex and Luna could not forgive her for the lies that had brought them to this moment. She turned to find Alex watching her with an expression she could not read, complex emotions playing across his features. "Are you hurt?" she asked, moving quickly to cut his restraints with a knife from her boot. "No," Alex said quietly, flexing his freed hands, "but Luna needs medical attention immediately. Whatever they gave her." "I know a doctor who does not ask questions," Asha said, carefully lifting Luna's unconscious form and noting her steady breathing with relief. "She will be okay, Alex. I promise you that." As they made their way out of the warehouse together, Alex caught her arm gently. "Asha, what happens now? What happens to us?" She looked down at Luna's peaceful face, then up at the man who had changed everything for her, who had made her believe redemption was possible even for someone like her. "Now we make sure Luna wakes up healthy and safe. Everything else, we will figure out as we go." It was not a complete answer, but it was all she could offer. Vincent was dead, but the larger conspiracy involving Richard Kane and Amelia still threatened their family. And they were a family now, Asha realized with wonder. Not in any traditional sense, but in the ways that mattered most: love, protection, choice, and commitment. 6 hours later, Luna woke up in Alex's penthouse, groggy but alert and asking for water. The private doctor had confirmed the drug was a mild sedative that would leave no lasting effects, and Asha had never been more grateful for anything in her entire life. "Asha." Luna's voice was small and confused as she struggled to sit up in her bed. "Why does my head feel so funny? And why do you look like you have been crying?" "You were sick, sweetheart," Asha said, smoothing Luna's hair back from her forehead with infinite gentleness. "But you are completely better now. Did you save me again?" The simple question carried the weight of the world, and Asha glanced at Alex, who was watching them from the doorway with an expression of wonder and something deeper that made her heart skip. "We saved each other," Asha said honestly, because it was the truth in every way that mattered. As Luna drifted back to sleep, Alex moved to sit beside Asha on the edge of the bed. They sat in comfortable silence for a long moment, both processing everything that had happened and everything that had changed between them. "I need to know," Alex said finally, his voice careful and measured. "Was any of it real? The way you looked at Luna, the way you kissed me?" Asha turned to face him completely, her heart in her throat as she prepared to lay herself bare. "It was the most real thing I have ever experienced in my life. Alex, I know I lied to you about who I was and where I came from, but I never lied about how I felt, not once." "And how do you feel?" "Terrified," she admitted with brutal honesty. "I have never cared about anyone the way I care about you and Luna. I do not know how to be part of a family. I do not know how to be anything other than what Vincent made me." Alex's hand found hers, his fingers intertwining with hers in a gesture that felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. "Neither do I, in a lot of ways. I've been so focused on protecting Luna from my dangerous world that I forgot how to let anyone else into our lives." "What are you saying?" Alex's blue eyes were soft with emotion and possibility that took her breath away. I am saying maybe we can figure it out together. You saved our lives tonight, Asha. You chose us over everything you had ever known. That is not something someone does unless... Unless what? Unless they love you, Alex finished quietly, the words hanging in the air between them like a bridge across an impossible chasm. The declaration made Asha's chest tighten with emotions too big for words. I do love you, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Both of you. More than I ever thought it was possible to love anyone. When Alex kissed her this time, it was with the certainty of a man who had found his missing piece and the tenderness of someone who understood that broken things required gentle handling. Asha melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt as she poured 12 years of loneliness and longing into the connection between them. Stay, Alex said against her lips, his voice rough with emotion. Stay and help me give Luna the family she deserves. Stay and let us love you the way you deserve to be loved. Yes, Asha breathed, not caring that she was crying openly. Yes, I will stay forever if you will have me. As they held each other in the soft light of Luna's bedroom, watching the child sleep peacefully for the first time in days, Asha realized she had finally found what she had been searching for her entire life, a place to belong, people to protect, and love worth fighting for. Vincent was gone forever, but Richard Kane and Amelia's conspiracy still threatened their newfound happiness. There would be more battles to fight, more challenges to face, more healing to do. But as Alex's arms tightened around her and Luna stirred peacefully in her sleep, Asha knew they would face whatever came next together, as a family. She was no longer an assassin without a soul. She was Asha Knight, protector of the people she loved most in the world, and that made her more dangerous than Vincent had ever imagined possible. Chapter 3. 2 weeks after Vincent's death, life had settled into a rhythm that felt both miraculous and fragile, like something precious that might shatter if handled too roughly. Asha had officially moved into the guest wing of Alex's penthouse, hired as Luna's full-time security specialist, but functioning as something infinitely more precious than any job description could capture. The transition had not been seamless, despite their mutual feelings. Luna had adapted with the resilience of childhood, delighted to have Asha permanently in their home and treating her presence as the most natural thing in the world. But Alex struggled with fully trusting someone who had deceived him so completely, even knowing her deception had saved their lives. They were polite, professional, carefully distant, despite the attraction that still crackled between them whenever they occupied the same space. You are overthinking this entire situation, Captain David Santos told Alex during one of their weekly security briefings. The woman killed her own handler to save your life and your daughter's life. At some point, you have to decide whether you are going to forgive her completely or spend the rest of your life wondering what might have been. Alex knew Santos was absolutely right, but knowing and acting were entirely different challenges. Every time he looked at Asha, he felt the same conflicting emotions warring in his chest: desire, gratitude, hurt, and something deeper that terrified him with its intensity and permanence. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening when Asha was injured protecting Luna from Richard Kane's latest attempt to destabilize their lives and force a corporate takeover. A sniper had taken position across from Luna's school, and Asha had thrown herself between the child and the bullet meant to terrorize Alex into submission. "It is just a graze," Asha insisted through gritted teeth as Alex pressed a towel against the bleeding wound on her shoulder, his hands shaking with barely controlled panic. Luna was not hurt, and that is literally the only thing that matters. "Stop," Alex said roughly, his professional composure finally cracking under the weight of his fear. "Stop acting like your life does not matter to anyone." "Alex, no," he said fiercely, his blue eyes blazing with emotion he could no longer contain. "I have watched you risk everything for us over and over again. You have been shot, threatened, and nearly killed, and you act like it is just part of some job description." Asha looked up at him from where she sat on his bathroom counter, surprised by the raw emotion in his voice and the way his hands were trembling against her skin. "It is part of protecting the people I love." "This is not about professional duty anymore, and you know it," Alex said, his carefully maintained control finally shattering completely. "This is about family." The bathroom fell silent except for the sound of their breathing and the distant hum of the city beyond the windows. Alex's hands were still pressed against her wound, but his touch had gentled, becoming almost reverent as he traced the edges of the bandage he was applying. "I was terrified," he admitted quietly, his voice breaking with vulnerability. "When I saw that blood, when I thought I might lose you, Asha, I cannot do this anymore." "Do what?" "Pretend I do not love you," Alex said, his forehead resting against hers. "Pretend I do not need you in ways that have absolutely nothing to do with Luna's security and everything to do with my heart." Asha's breath caught in her throat. "Alex, I know you lied to me about who you were," he continued, his hands framing her face with infinite gentleness. "I know you came here originally to kill me. But I also know you have risked your life to protect my daughter more times than I can count. I know you sing her lullabies when she has nightmares, and I know you have not taken a single day off in 2 weeks because you are terrified something will happen to us if you are not here." Tears were streaming down Asha's face now, and she made no attempt to stop them or hide her emotional response. "I love you," she whispered, the words torn from her heart. "I love you both so much it terrifies me every single day." "Then stop running from it," Alex said, his voice rough with desperate need. "Stop punishing yourself for your past and help me build something real and permanent with you." When he kissed her this time, it was with the desperation of a man who had almost lost everything and the tenderness of someone who understood exactly how precious second chances could be. Asha melted into him completely, her good arm wrapping around his neck as she poured 2 weeks of longing and regret into the connection between them. "Are you sure about this?" she asked against his lips, her heart pounding. "Alex, there are still things about my past, about what I have done." "I do not care about any of that," Alex said fiercely, his voice leaving no room for doubt. "Whatever you were before, you are the woman who saved my daughter's life. You are the woman who chose love over everything else. That is all I need to know." As Alex's hands moved carefully around her injured shoulder, Asha realized they had crossed a line they could never uncross. But for the first time since Vincent found her as a frightened child, she was not afraid of vulnerability or emotional exposure. She was home, and home was wherever Alex and Luna were. Later that evening, after Luna was tucked safely in bed with extra security posted throughout the penthouse, Alex found Asha on the terrace overlooking the glittering city. She was still wearing the soft button-down shirt he had given her after their visit to the private doctor, the fabric oversized and comfortable against her smaller frame. "How is the shoulder feeling?" he asked, joining her at the railing and wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Sore, but healing well," Asha replied, leaning into his warmth and feeling safer than she had ever felt in her life. "Alex, about what happened earlier. Do you regret it?" Asha turned in his arms, her dark eyes searching his face in the soft lighting from the penthouse. "No." "Do you?" Instead of answering with words, Alex cupped her face in his hands and kissed her with a depth of feeling that made her knees weak and her heart race. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, his blue eyes were dark with desire and something infinitely deeper. "Come inside with me," he said quietly, his voice rough with need and hope. It was not really a question, but Asha heard the choice he was giving her clearly. They could go back to being careful and professional, maintaining safe emotional distance, or they could take the next step into whatever this was becoming between them. "Yes," she whispered without hesitation. Alex's penthouse bedroom was a study in understated elegance, all clean lines and muted colors that somehow felt both sophisticated and welcoming. As Alex closed the door behind them with deliberate care, Asha felt a flutter of nervousness she had not experienced since she was much younger. "We do not have to do anything you are not ready for," Alex said, seeming to sense her uncertainty with the perception that had drawn her to him from the beginning. "It is not that," Asha said, moving closer to him across the plush carpet. "It is just, I have never done this before." Alex's eyebrows rose in genuine surprise. "Never?" "I mean, I have had sex," Asha clarified, heat flooding her cheeks despite her usual composure. "But I have never made love with someone I actually loved with my whole heart. Someone who loved me back unconditionally." The confession hung in the air between them, vulnerable and honest and more intimate than any physical touch. Alex's expression softened into something so tender it made Asha's chest ache with the beauty of being truly seen. "Then we will take this as slowly as you need," he said, his hands coming up to frame her face with reverent gentleness. "We have all the time in the world." As Alex's lips found hers again, Asha felt years of emotional walls finally crumbling completely and permanently. His kiss was gentle but insistent, conveying without words how precious she was to him, how much he had come to need her presence in his life and Luna's life. When his fingers began working on the buttons of her shirt with careful attention to her injured shoulder, Asha did not tense with the defensive instincts Vincent had trained into her. Instead, she felt herself relaxing completely into Alex's touch, trusting him with her body and her heart in ways she had never trusted anyone. "You are so beautiful," Alex murmured against her skin as the shirt fell away, his lips trailing reverent kisses across her collarbone while carefully avoiding her bandaged shoulder. Inside and out. "Alex," Asha breathed, her hands finding the hem of his sweater and pulling it over his head with gentle urgency. The sight of his bare chest, lean and strong and marked with small scars that spoke of a life lived fully, made her pulse quicken with desire and something infinitely deeper. This was Alex, who sang his daughter lullabies and worked 18-hour days to build a better world. Alex, who had trusted her with his most precious treasure and forgiven her for lies that should have been unforgivable. "I love you," she whispered, her fingers tracing the planes of his chest with wonder. "Show me," Alex replied, his voice rough with need and overwhelming emotion. What followed was a slow, reverent exploration of touch and taste, of whispered confessions and gentle discoveries that felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. Alex worshipped her body with reverent hands and soft lips, making her feel like something precious and cherished rather than a weapon to be used and discarded. Every touch was a promise, every kiss a covenant. Alex took his time, learning what made her gasp with pleasure, what made her arch into his touch, what made her whisper his name like a prayer. And Asha discovered the profound joy of giving pleasure, as well as receiving it, of watching Alex's face transform with wonder and desire as she explored the man she loved with growing confidence. When they finally came together completely, it was with a tenderness that brought tears to Asha's eyes, and a completeness that made her understand why people wrote poetry about love. This was not just physical release or mechanical satisfaction, it was emotional healing, two broken souls finally finding completion in each other's arms. Time seemed to stop as they moved together in perfect harmony, each touch and movement speaking of love deeper than words could express. Alex was infinitely gentle with her injured shoulder, positioning himself to protect her while still allowing them the intimacy they both craved desperately. "Are you okay?" Alex asked afterward, his arms wrapped protectively around her as they lay tangled in his sheets, both breathing hard and overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they had shared. "Perfect," Asha replied, her head resting on his chest where she could hear his heartbeat steady and strong. "I never knew it could feel like this." "Like what?" "Safe," she said simply, the word carrying the weight of a lifetime of fear and loneliness. "Like coming home to exactly where I belong." Alex's arms tightened around her with protective tenderness, and Asha felt herself drifting towards sleep for the first time in years without automatically checking her surroundings for threats or escape routes. She was safe here, loved here, wanted here, with an intensity that still took her breath away. She was exactly where she belonged, and nothing would ever change that. Sometimes the people we trust most are the ones who betray us, while strangers become our greatest protectors. Have you ever had someone unexpected become your hero when family let you down? Share your story below, and let's build a community of real strength together. The next morning brought a crisis that tested their newfound intimacy and forced them to confront the future they were building together. Luna woke up with innocent questions about why Asha was having breakfast with them in her pajamas, and Richard Kane chose that exact moment to make his most aggressive move yet in his campaign to destroy their family. "Daddy, is Asha going to live with us forever now?" Luna asked with the directness only an 8-year-old could muster, spooning cereal into her mouth while studying the adults with bright curiosity. Alex and Asha exchanged a look loaded with meaning and possibility they had not yet had time to discuss. They had not talked about the future beyond admitting their feelings for each other, but Luna's innocent question forced them to confront what they were building together and where it might lead. "Would you like that, sweetheart?" Alex asked his daughter carefully, his hand finding Asha's across the breakfast table. "Yes," Luna exclaimed with enthusiasm that lit up her entire face. "Asha could be my new mommy, and we could be a real family like the other kids at school." The simple declaration hit Asha like a physical blow that left her breathless. She had never imagined being anyone's mother, had never thought she deserved that kind of love and responsibility and trust. But looking at Luna's bright smile and Alex's hopeful expression, she realized that family was not about biology or legal documents or traditional structures. It was about choice, about people who chose to love and protect each other no matter what challenges they faced. "I would like that too," Asha said quietly, reaching across the table to take Luna's small hand in hers. "More than anything in the world." But before Alex could respond with the words she could see forming on his lips, his phone rang with the urgent tone that indicated Captain Santos was calling with emergency information. The conversation that followed changed everything. "They are moving extremely fast," Santos explained over speakerphone, his voice grim with professional concern. "Richard Kane has filed legal documents claiming you are an unfit father due to your association with known criminals. And Amelia is petitioning for emergency custody of Luna based on safety concerns." Alex's jaw clenched with fury that made his entire body tense. "Over my dead body?" "That might not be a viable option," Santos continued with brutal honesty. "Kane must have investigators who discovered Asha's real background and previous profession. They are using her past as evidence that you are deliberately putting Luna in immediate danger. The judge has granted a temporary hearing for this afternoon if they can prove Luna is in imminent danger." "They cannot take her," Asha said fiercely, her protective instincts flaring with deadly intensity. "I will not let them." "Asha," Alex said carefully, clearly torn between protecting her and protecting Luna, "maybe you should disappear for a while, until we can fight this legally through proper channels." "No," Asha interrupted, standing with the kind of lethal grace that reminded them all of exactly what she was capable of when motivated. "I am done running from who I used to be. I am done letting other people dictate whether I deserve happiness." "What are you thinking?" Alex asked, though his expression suggested he already suspected what she had in mind. "I'm thinking it is time to end this permanently," Asha replied, her dark eyes cold with purpose and determination. "Richard Kane wants to play games with our family's future. Let's show him exactly what happens when you threaten the people I love." As Asha disappeared into her room to prepare for what might be their final confrontation with the forces trying to destroy them, Alex realized that protecting their family might require embracing the very skills that had brought them together in the first place. But this time, Asha would not be fighting alone. The corporate offices of Kane Industries were a monument to wealth and power, all marble and glass designed to intimidate visitors into submission through sheer architectural dominance. But as Asha and Alex walked through the lobby that afternoon, they moved with the confidence of people who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. "Mr. Kane is expecting you," the receptionist said nervously, clearly unsettled by something in their demeanor that spoke of barely controlled danger. They found Richard Kane in his executive conference room, surrounded by expensive lawyers and looking smugly confident in his ability to manipulate the legal system to his advantage. Amelia sat beside him, her resemblance to Alex apparent but twisted by years of greed and resentment that had turned her into someone unrecognizable. "Alexander," Kane said with false pleasantness, rising from his chair with theatrical confidence. "And Miss Knight, I presume. Thank you for making this so wonderfully convenient." "Where are the custody papers?" Alex asked without preamble, his voice cutting through Kane's pretense like a blade. "Being filed as we speak," Amelia replied with satisfaction that made her look ugly despite her expensive clothes and perfect makeup. "Luna will be much safer in my care, away from your increasingly dangerous lifestyle choices." "You mean away from the trust fund you cannot access while I am alive," Alex said coldly, his blue eyes fixed on his sister with disappointment and anger. Kane's smile faltered slightly at Alex's directness. "This is entirely about Luna's welfare and safety. This is about corporate espionage, conspiracy, and murder," Asha interrupted with deadly calm, placing a thick file on the polished conference table. "Vincent Moreau was very thorough in his record-keeping before I killed him." The room went completely silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Kane's expensive lawyers shifted uncomfortably in their chairs as Asha opened the file with deliberate precision to reveal documented evidence of the conspiracy. Bank transfers from Kane Industries to Vincent's organization, encrypted emails between Amelia and Kane discussing Alex's elimination, and detailed plans for the hostile takeover that would follow his death. "You cannot prove any of this in court," Kane said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence and his hands were trembling slightly. "Actually, I can," Asha replied with the kind of cold smile that had once terrified targets across 3 continents. "Because Vincent recorded everything, including your phone call authorizing Luna's kidnapping if I failed to complete the original contract." She pressed play on a small digital recorder, and Kane's voice filled the room with damning clarity. "If the assassin will not finish the job, take the kid. Thorne will do anything to protect his daughter, even die for her." "That recording will not hold up in court," one of Kane's lawyers said desperately, clearly grasping for any legal strategy that might save his client. "You are absolutely right," Alex said, speaking for the first time since they had entered the room. "But it will destroy your reputation completely and trigger a federal investigation into your business practices. The SEC tends to take corporate murder conspiracies very seriously, especially when they involve children." Amelia looked between Kane and Alex with growing panic, realizing for the first time the magnitude of what she had involved herself in. "Richard, you said this would be simple and clean. You said no one would actually get hurt." "Your sister is right about one thing," Asha said, her voice deadly quiet in a way that made everyone in the room unconsciously lean away from her. "No one else is going to get hurt because you are going to withdraw the custody petition immediately, dissolve any business connections to Thorne Industries permanently, and disappear from our lives forever." "And if we refuse?" Kane asked, though he was clearly shaken by the evidence spread before him. Asha's smile turned predatory in a way that reminded everyone present exactly what she was capable of. "Then I will stop being a reformed assassin and go back to being a very current and very motivated one. Your choice entirely. The threat hung in the air like a blade poised to fall. Kane looked around the room at his lawyers, all of whom were studiously avoiding eye contact, then at Amelia, who was pale with terror and rapidly understanding consequences. "This is blackmail," he said weakly, grasping for any semblance of control. "This is family protection," Alex corrected with ice in his voice, "something you would never understand because you have never loved anyone more than money." 30 minutes later, they walked out of Kane Industries with signed documents withdrawing all legal challenges and a guarantee that Richard Kane would never again interfere in their lives. Amelia had broken down completely during the confrontation, confessing her role in the conspiracy in exchange for immunity from federal prosecution. "Is it really over?" Alex asked as they drove back toward home in Luna. "It is over," Asha confirmed, her hand finding his across the console. "Kane is too intelligent to risk federal investigation, and Amelia is too terrified to try anything else. They know I will keep my promises." "And us? Is this the part where you disappear because the mission is finally complete?" Asha turned to look at him, her heart racing with hope and fear in equal measure. "Is that what you want?" "What I want," Alex said, pulling over to the side of the road so he could look at her properly, "is to marry you. I want to adopt you legally as Luna's mother. I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of our lives and build something beautiful together." "Alex," Asha breathed, tears starting to fall despite her happiness. "I know it seems crazy," he continued, his hands framing her face with infinite gentleness. "I know we have only really known each other for a few weeks. But Asha, I've never been more certain of anything in my life." "Yes," she whispered, not caring that she was crying openly in broad daylight. "Yes, I want all of that and more." When Alex kissed her this time, it tasted like promise and forever, like the kind of love that conquers fear and builds families from the wreckage of broken lives. 6 months later, Asha stood in Luna's bedroom, helping the 9-year-old get ready for what she insisted on calling the most important day in the history of everything. Today was the day Alex and Asha were getting married, and Luna was beside herself with excitement about officially becoming a family. "Do you think my first mommy would be happy about today?" Luna asked as Asha helped her with her flower girl dress, a question that caught Asha completely off guard. Luna rarely mentioned her birth mother anymore, having embraced Asha as her new mom with the wonderful adaptability of childhood. But today, she seemed thoughtful about the transition they were all making together. "I think your first mommy would want your daddy to be happy," Asha said carefully, smoothing Luna's dark curls. "And she would want you to feel loved and safe and cherished." "I do feel safe," Luna said matter-of-factly, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "You and Daddy make me feel like nothing bad can ever happen to me again." "We will always protect you," Asha promised, meaning it with every fiber of her being. "That is what families do for each other." "I know," Luna replied with the absolute confidence of a child who had never had reason to doubt the adults in her life. "That is what makes us special." As they made their way to the garden where Alex waited with the minister and their small group of chosen family and friends, Asha reflected on how completely her life had changed. She was no longer the woman who had climbed onto that rooftop with a rifle and cold precision. She was Asha Knight Thorne, soon to be Luna's legal mother and Alex's wife. She was exactly who she was meant to be. The ceremony was small and intimate, just close friends and the family they had chosen for themselves. When Alex saw her walking down the aisle with Luna beside her, his face lit up with the kind of joy that made everyone present believe in the transformative power of love. "You look beautiful," he whispered as she joined him at the altar. "So do you," Asha replied, her voice thick with emotion and overwhelming happiness. As they exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising to protect and cherish each other and the family they had built from ashes and second chances, Asha felt the last of her walls finally crumble completely and permanently. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister said with a smile. "You may kiss your bride." When Alex kissed her as the sun set behind them and Luna cheered with pure delight, Asha knew that some stories really do have happy endings for people brave enough to choose love over fear. Sometimes the most dangerous people become our greatest protectors, and the families we choose are stronger than the ones we are born into. Alex found a fierce guardian for his daughter and a healing love for his heart. Asha discovered the true strength is not in taking life, but in protecting it with everything you have. And Luna. She got the mother she always wished for and taught two broken adults how to become whole again. Love really can conquer fear, family really can heal the deepest wounds, and sometimes the person hired to destroy your life ends up saving it instead. Their story was living proof that no matter how dark your past, it is never too late to choose love, to choose family, to choose hope over despair. And they lived happily ever after, protecting each other and building something beautiful from the ashes of what they used to be. Have you ever found family in unexpected places? Have you ever had someone walk into your life and change everything for the better? Share your stories of unexpected love and chosen family in the comments below. Let me know where you are watching from, and if this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss our tales of love, hope, and redemption. Tomorrow brings another story of hearts finding their way home. Until then, remember, love always wins, family is everything, and everyone deserves a second chance at happiness.